Okay, thank you very, very much. I was last week in Kuala Lumpur when we had an Italian presenter saying that for Italians, it's genetically impossible to ask them to speak slowly. Then I would say that for Latin Americans to be asked to be brief, it might be culturally inappropriate. However, I feel relieved that it seems that that problem is not only for Latin Americans, but I will try to do my best and be as brief as possible. So we'll start presenting some lessons that UNEDAP has pulled together to share with you. We have a longer list, but we'll try to be brief and highlight some important issues. First, a bit of background so you can understand where we stand with vis-a-vis with regards to UNDAF evaluations in the region. UNEDAP is a network that is aimed at strengthening capacities and at contributing to create or to enhance an evaluation culture in the region. It was launched in Bangkok in 2007, and nowadays we have representatives of 9 UN agencies. In 2009, and I think this is important, UNEDAP formally joined the peer support group of UNDG Asia Pacific. This was considered a milestone because UNEDAP is the member that it's supposed to provide support and advice to countries in the UNDAF cycle to support them to get prepared for the evaluability assessments for the UNDAF evaluations, etc. I'm not going to deal with more activities of UNEDAP because there you can visit the website, but it's more UNDAF related. So in order to be able to comply with our responsibility as members of the peer support group, there was a decision among the network to create a UNDAF evaluation task force. So this UNDAF evaluation task force was to deal with the demands coming from country offices in terms of support for getting prepared for evaluability assessments and for UNDAF evaluations. The already existing task force on training was mandated as well to incorporate in the training curricula topics related to UNDAF evaluations, evaluability in UNDAF, and also hands-on exercise on UNDAF evaluations. We also decided to expand our audience in our course of evaluation in UN context to the resident coordinators' offices and not only to UN agencies as such. No, not yet. So when we started with very, very, very high energy, making these decisions within UNEDAP, and we also were contacted by the UN System Staff College to be part of their training to roll out countries and to provide the training on UNDAF evaluations. However, that was one event that never continued, and we really are looking forward to enhance our coordination that has been not that effective to continue with that. However, the demands coming from countries to support them in terms of availability of UNDAFs and UNDAF evaluations have come, but at one point, the majority of them step back and don't do the evaluations. So we have initial demands, but that are not materialized in UNDAF evaluations. Very rarely we are presenting the case of Bhutan, but we have various cases of countries that have approached us and then they have stepped back, alluding mainly lack of capacity or lack of funds. There is a big issue here because if the country decides to step back, then the institutional body, which is the PSG, just don't try to generate a discussion or to coordinate with the countries around issues of accountability. So it's up to the countries to undertake the evaluations at the end of the day or to step back. So the issue of to what extent it's important for the UN to demonstrate accountability and accountability to the countries we serve, to the people we serve, is not really embedded into the discussions in the region. What are key lessons learned? There is a need to further work towards enhancing a culture of accountability and learning. We're still dealing with very old questions. One of them was mentioned here, is are UNDAF evaluations needed? Are they useful? But we also have some other questions saying, well, can we actually evaluate a framework? And UNDAF is a framework. So the discussion again is not really about the extent to which the UN has to be accountable, has to demonstrate accountability in one way or the other. But the question is not yet there. So there is further work towards enhancing the culture of accountability and learning, and more investment from all us actors, players, is needed in this regard. UNDAF evaluations are mostly, when they are done, are mostly compliance-driven. So we need to comply because now it is mandatory. Before we were not sure, oh, we have to prepare the countries because they have to do an evaluation that now is mandatory. And I think it's a good step, a very good step to have included in the guidance and the QCPR that evaluations are mandatory nowadays. But that's not enough. The evaluations should be done because we have to demonstrate accountability and we have to learn, and not only because we need to comply. The demands of evaluations need to be our contributions to create the demand or to better organize that demand, to enhance the demand, also is something we should be dealing with. In 2006, there was a study on evaluability of the overall approach to UNDAFs done by Paul Balogun, and he mentioned there already many years ago that demand for UNDAF evaluations was an issue, and there was a need to further invest on that, and I think that we are, to a certain extent, at the same point nowadays. Another lesson, efforts towards producing relevant and very good quality guidance are commendable. But that step has been done already, but we think that this guidance will only pay off if combined with efforts towards enhancing the demand for UNDAF evaluations. Capacity and quality constraint, we need effective systems to ensure predictable funding for UNDAF evaluations and for quality assurance purposes that need to be put in place. Efforts towards enhancing capacities for UNDAF evaluation should be evaluated, as Krishna has already mentioned, should be enhanced, and should be institutionalized. This is a lesson learned from UNEDAP, and I will explain why it is. UNEDAP's investment in enhancing the capacities in the region for UNDAF evaluation has been highly appreciated. Participants to our annually conducted regional course on evaluation in the UN context have actually demonstrated that they have learned and they have applied the learning they have gained through the courses and exercises. However, that application of knowledge is rarely related to UNDAF evaluations. They are mainly applying their knowledge in other types of evaluation or in national evaluation capacity development, which is commendable. But the link, there is some link missing there, because if we are putting our investment also in reinforcing capacities of UNDAF evaluation and that is not paying off, it means that we should also look at other fronts of the other fronts, like coordination issues, like joining forces with the PSG, getting in touch with DOCO, working closer with UNEG to make the UNDAF evaluations actually happen. There is also a need, I'm sure this is not only a regionally based issue, but there is also a need to address UNDAF evaluations at the higher strategic level. There is an emphasis when evaluations are done, there is mainly an emphasis on assessing outcomes, which is good, but we need to go beyond that. The extent to which the UN has been strategically positioned in the country, or what the value added that UN system has done to the country, is rarely or just marginally assessed. And that's important. That's important if we really want to be accountable to the country. Emphasis on compliance inhibits contextualization and affects quality and use. Before doing our annually regional course on evaluation in the UN context, we review the UNDAF evaluation reports that are available in the DOCO website. One of the findings we got is that most of those evaluation reports, most of the TORs, have almost exactly the same questions. The same questions, so somebody drafted an apparently good TOR, and countries decided that probably the good way to go was just to, instead of reinventing the wheel, just to copy and paste the questions and to do the evaluation using the same questions. So that is a problem, and that affects quality because the questions are not really focusing on the needs of the country, on the priorities of the country, but they are mainly asking general things. So probably to finalize this, the UNEDAP needs to enhance its partnership approach to more effectively contribute to UNDAF evaluations. We cannot work more in isolation. So in this venue, in this occasion, we would like to discuss with UNEG how to more closely and more effectively work to enhance the UNDAF evaluations and increase the accountability of the UN in the countries we serve. Thank you very, very much.